Didem Altop, co-founder of Endeavor Turkey, Manish Mohan, head of South and Central Asia, Confederation of India Industry, Mustafa Baltacı. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. I know it's been a long day. The topic of SMEs is a very important topic because SMEs are the backbone of the economies. And basically, SMEs provide all the future benefits, all the development of economies towards more productive activities, creating jobs, creating investment opportunities. We have with us on this panel experts in the field of SME. I'll start by asking each one of them to present themselves, and then I'll ask them a general question before we take your questions. Elif, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. My name is Elif Coşkunkan. I'm the managing partner of A2Home. A2Home is like one of the first accelerators founded in Turkey. And since 2008, actually, we have been receiving startup applications and selecting them for our own acceleration program. We provide them actually mentorships and we support them in terms of raising funding and of course PR. Like for the last 10 years actually we are working on that, but besides that, actually, just to develop the Turkish ecosystem, first of all, we started to organize Startup Turkey, which is a conference and also a big demo day for selected startups. Now we, in every 6 months, actually, in a year, we organize Startup Turkey and Startup Istanbul events, which are like the gatherings of startups, investors, VCs, corporate VCs, and companies and media. I used to be an entrepreneur, by the way, so I ran a couple of businesses before my job in A2Home, so I know startups and entrepreneurs how to be and how hard it is actually. I like still being with talented entrepreneurs and also visionary investors who make the dreams come true.
Great, thank you. Berna, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Berna Özşar. I'm currently the general manager of TOPTIM, which is a subsidiary of TOBB, the Union of Chambers and Commodity Exchanges of Turkey. But I'm here with my previous hat. I'm the former Secretary General of the World SME Forum, which is a G20 initiative established in 2015. The World SME Forum is a private-led initiative, private sector-led initiative, which was established to support SME development globally by providing representation in international platforms for SMEs, facilitating their access to trade, access to markets, global value chains, access to skills and finance. Previously, I was in the insurance business, but my background is international relations and EU affairs. So I have always been working in companies in the EU harmonization process, in the internationalization process. For the SME hat, I was responsible for internationalizing SMEs, enabling them to access global markets, but I will tell that in detail in the course of the session. Thank you.
Didem, can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here with my colleagues and everybody. I'm currently, as of last week actually, the co-founder and managing partner of a new project house, actually a company builder project house called 2C. And before that, I'm also here with my previous title and my previous role as the co-founder and managing director of Endeavor Turkey, which is an international entrepreneurship support organization that deals with new economy entrepreneurs, high growth entrepreneurs, in the scale-up phase, actually, as well as building local ecosystems. And I've had an opportunity to collaborate with my colleagues over the years, and we'll get back to some of the lessons that we've learned from that.
Thank you. Manish?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Manish Mohan. I head the South and Central Asia desk in Confederation of Indian Industry. Confederation of Indian Industry is an apex business chamber of India. We have 66 offices in India and 10 overseas offices. 60% of our membership consists of SMEs. We have 8,000 direct members and more than 200,000 indirect members. We work very closely with TOB and DIC in Turkey. And we're trying our Indian small and medium enterprises to grow and help them in getting access to finance, technology, marketing, skills, and trying to do hand-holding. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm going to ask the same question to all of you, and it relates to the fact that we see a lot of startups created, and then they disappear. We see a lot of SMEs suffering from the normal obstacles of access to markets, access to finance, access to technology, access to scale up, and remain at a very low activity level. And yet, we see how important the role is. How do you see the future for SME development in a sustainable manner? What is still required, and what are the tools that we can give SMEs in order to help them prosper and develop?
Well, it's a very good question. First of all, what I believe is just to define startups a bit different than the traditional SMEs. So because they both need actually different things, I think. We are, since our foundation, we are more focused on technology startups. So who can create innovative and disruptive solutions for our daily lives. And for a startup, it's much easier right now to reach millions of users or consumers in a couple of years. And they can become scale-ups, and then the exits can happen. So what startups need actually, we see that in organizing our events. For example, we receive applications from India to Pakistan, from Egypt to Nigeria, and all the startups need the same thing actually. They need to have an environment, a convenient environment to establish their business, first of all. So we need to create more creative ecosystems in our countries, which are more open to creativity, new ideas, which we can do that with less bureaucracy, first of all. And apart from that, of course, we need to help them to access needed funding very easily. So in order to do that, actually, we need to attract global investors to our regions. How we can do that? We believe that if we collect all the talented people in our region or in our country or in our specific cities, then the global investors will have more attention to that, and they will be easily reach the needed funding. Apart from that, of course, the talented human resources is very important. To sum up, actually, we need to first ease the conditions for startups to born, and then to survive, and then to fail or success. Even to failing is a problem that we need to make it easier for startups to fail as well. After failing, they can try again and try again till the success. So we need to think about this way, and I think we should change our conditions a bit according to that.
Great, thank you very much. Rana, the same question to you.
Well, Fadi, when you say creating a sustainable business environment for SMEs, the first two words that come to my mind were digitalization and e-commerce. The future of trade is E. The world is going digital. Today, wherever we look, we see new digital companies, new digital jobs, and new digital markets. If you ask people which US companies they use every day, they are very less likely to name companies like Procter & Gamble and Ford, but you will hear them name companies like Amazon, Google, eBay, Apple. So digital is transforming every single sector of the economy and segment of the society. During the last decade, along with the developments of information technology, e-commerce has become one of the most dynamic areas of economic activity. According to latest UNCTAD, the UN Conference on Trade and Development records, the global market in e-commerce has already exceeded, not reached, 25 trillion US dollars, and it's rising fast. So e-commerce is playing a more important role in promoting domestic and cross-border trade, industry transformation, and job creation. So this provides many strategic opportunities to countries for the economic and social development, as well as opening new horizons for SMEs. Beyond local markets, beyond national markets, beyond even regional markets, e-commerce puts an SME right into the global marketplace. So this brings more competitiveness to the SMEs, which in turn leads to high productivity, wage and employment gains, and better and inclusive growth. 15 years ago, an SME's work area, trade in many services, would be limited to the local neighborhood. And a new innovative SME would face serious difficulties in accessing new markets. However, today, even a startup run from a kitchen in Burundi has the opportunity and potential to reach out to global markets thanks to the existence of e-commerce. However, the fast development of economy and digital economy and e-commerce has been both a blessing and a curse for SMEs. Let me tell you why. As we know, the major impediments to SME growth have been identified as access to finance, access to skills, access to global value chains and markets. This is true for SMEs in developed countries as well as developing countries. However, a sizable portion of SMEs in developed countries have been benefiting from the opportunities offered by e-commerce to address these challenges. These SMEs have some common characteristics. They are market-oriented, export-driven, dynamic, and digitally capable. They are well served by commercial electronic platforms and trading networks which enable them to connect to global markets. However, this is only one side of the story. On the other side of the story, we have SMEs in the less developed parts of the world, in the developing countries, which are lagging behind. Why? Well, simply because of their inability to fully understand and access the digital platforms. So what happens as a result? Well, the gap between SMEs in the developed countries and the SMEs in the developing world is expanding at an alarming rate. And if we do not take the necessary precautions, if SMEs cannot adapt to the new ways of doing business, this gap will continue to grow and multiply the already existing social, political, and economic problems. So what are the main barriers that SMEs face today? In the least developed part of the world, in developing countries, well, we can identify these problems under 3 A's: awareness, access, and ability. There's lack of awareness for sure, and understanding the value of e-commerce among SMEs. Access is another problem for many SMEs because many SMEs do not have the necessary tools of the digital age and market information. Although internet penetration has increased in many parts of the world, many SMEs are still completely offline. And if there's no internet connection, if there's no connectivity, there's no way for SMEs to grasp the opportunities offered by e-commerce and digitalization. Setup and maintenance costs are high for many SMEs, and there's, of course, the infrastructure deficit as well. Ability is the third issue that I would like to mention. SMEs have insufficient knowledge and skills. Basic illiteracy is a challenge for many of them. They are not really very much experienced with sales and import duties. They face language barriers. In a nutshell, to sum up, SMEs cannot challenge their exclusion from global e-commerce on their own. So what can we do to connect the unconnected? What can we do to help them and create a sustainable business environment for them? Well, there are solutions that I would like to share with you, but I think I have already exceeded my time, and in the second round, maybe I can give you examples. Thank you.
Didem, the floor is yours.
It's so Exciting I get to be after these two brilliant women. I'm going to give you a hybrid explanation, actually, and I agree that it's important to distinguish between high-impact entrepreneurship and SMEs as starting points. I think that they have their own distinctive features. But what's interesting is actually their needs are quite similar in terms of support and in terms of opportunities. But if you're looking at an SME that's providing jobs locally and services locally, if they're just growing at a linear rate, we're talking about reliability, sustainability, efficiency, that's one thing. But what we're really talking about is exponential growth, right? We want them to grow in leaps and bounds. For that to happen, what do we mean? It's the same thing for entrepreneurs, actually. We're talking about exposure to new markets, new products and services, or new processes. That's what's going to get them the exponential growth. But for that to happen, I think that I've identified 5 critical success factors that I'll share. One is, it really is an intention and an agenda. The SME itself has to make this an intention and an agenda. The second part of it is opportunity identification and mobilizing resources, because you do need the expertise and the market access and the technical skills and all those things that need to go with it, including the finance. But looking at where the trends of the world are going in terms of these new solutions and seeing what their core competencies can translate into is opportunity identification. And those are areas that I think that we can help as stakeholders. And then the third part, of course, is exactly what you underscored, is digital transformation. Digital transformation is coming like a tsunami. There's no getting away from it. Today, right now, while the developed world is achieving almost 16% of their commerce online, countries like Turkey are less than 2%. So there's a huge gap, and that gap is growing, so we need to be able to mobilize. But it's not just e-commerce, it's all the efficiencies that come from digital transformation, whether it's ERP, enterprise resource planning, whether it's CRM, reputation management, digital marketing. I mean, we really can't fall behind that curve. Number 4, a lot of SMEs tend to be family businesses. I'm not saying they all are, but they tend to be. And that actually requires a sense of awareness and mindfulness. It's a shift. It goes back to agenda setting, where we're empowering actually the second and third generations as new age entrepreneurs, leveraging the experience and the expertise of the parent company as a springboard into doing new and innovative things. And then the 5th part, I think, is a critical success factor, is we have to start getting more open about vertical collaborations. Yes, on the one end, we're competing with each other, but on the other end, there's so many things that need to happen with limited resources and limited time. So within different industry clusters, we need to start collaborating to see where we can create efficiencies for the sector as a whole. So when you take it one step further and look at what stakeholders and other incentives might include, I'm just going to give a laundry list that we can talk about again, but information technology services, logistics support and infrastructure services, human resources development across the board is a no-brainer. Supply chain finance, this is my biggest, my heart bleeds for this, because we see the SMEs getting big contracts, but they don't have the working capital to realize those contracts. And we've got to figure out a solution for this. And last but not least, I think it's really interesting that we really underuse mergers and acquisitions, both on the entrepreneur side as well as domestically between the SMEs, whether it's for complementary services or whether it's to take an existing service and become a powerhouse. I don't know why, culturally, we're not able to leverage mergers and acquisitions as a tool.
Great, Didam. Thank you very much.
You.
Manish, you come from a country known for SMEs and the importance of SMEs. Before that light turns red, can you please give us your insight?
Chairman, you rightly pointed out the sustainability factor for SME. This is a very, very crucial factor. And we have seen case of Bill Gates, when they started their business, they started as a SME. And they actually relied on their friends for the money. And when they grew big, they went to the formal channels. So same is the case actually for the SME in India also. In the rural areas, we see they have bright ideas, they have innovative ideas, but they don't have access to the finance. And in this connection, CII lobbied very hard with the government of India. And we In fact, our Prime Minister on 2nd November announced that a small entrepreneur, MSME, they can get loan of 10 million rupees in 59 minutes on an online portal. So that's a very, very big achievement, no? And there are various measures which have been now taken by Government of India to ease out, because there is a big rural and urban divide in India. On the one side we have big companies, on the other side we have small companies which are not sustainable because they don't have access to finance, they don't have access to technology, they don't have marketing skills. They make products, but they don't know where to market those products. So all this is a big challenge for SME sector. And one of the big things which have now come up in India is a cluster development approach. We have Tirupur textile clusters now, which is doing very well, and because we have 300 companies together, and they are sharing the best practices. Similarly, we have a jewelry cluster in Jaipur, in India. Ahmedabad cluster for textile. So different clusters we have formed, and we are getting help not only from Government of India, but also from UNIDO, UNDP, from various multi-stakeholders who are very, very keen. And also, we are trying to see not only doing hand-holding in terms of capacity building, but also to see that they have access to finance, which is very, very crucial.
Thank you very much. Ali Bey, where are you? I promised you 5:15. Allow me just to see if there's one single question from the audience. Thank you very much for being with us, and we'll be afterwards here. You can catch up. Thank you.
Thank you to our moderator and the panelists.